Start now. Okay.
Okay.
I have so many stories and I didn't know which one to choose for you today. But
Okay.
we had many days together yet, so I'll be able to get to the others. Since this is Sukkot, I chose to store the story about a sukkah, which we had in Africa.
Okay.
My husband was ambassador in a country called Central African Republic. Not a country that many people have heard about. The capital of that country is called Bangui. Bangui, and the French call it Bangui la Coquette. Not that beautiful. It sits right on the it's on the hottest spot on earth, one of the hottest spots on earth, and we lived with air conditioning all day and all night, but never mind. We got used to that.
Okay.
Of course, the car was air conditioned as much as we used the car. There weren't great distances there. But what I wanted to tell you is that I, as the wife of the ambassador, I took upon myself the role of taking care, among other things, taking care of our Israeli children. And there were few families, not many, but there were some families at the embassy, and also families, but I had not much to do with them, of French Jews who were there for business reasons. And the business in Bangui was mostly diamonds.
Wow.
It was a big diamond mining country, and a place from where they sent out many diamonds. So there were many French people living there, among them French Jews. But never mind. There were a few embassies. The ones we were very friendly with, particularly, were the Americans. And they happened to have a pool, a swimming pool, so I was particularly friendly with them. And they permitted me to use their swimming pool, which made me very happy. And the Germans, because we're the only ones who spoke their language, and they were very nice. The wife of the ambassador was called Lolita. She was, I think, originally Spanish, but they were...
In Philippines, there's also Lolita names.
Yeah, it's a Spanish name. Also in the Philippines? Comes from the Spanish to you. She was a lovely young woman, and they very often had film evenings in their house. We were the only guests because the films were in German, and we were the only ones who could understand. In fact, we saw an Israeli film for the first time, which later became very, very famous here. We saw that for the first time in German in an African town, which was very funny. But to come back to Sukkot, when we knew that Sukkot was coming, we needed to build a sukkah.
Yeah.
And we didn't have the manpower for it. So my husband asked the president for help. And we were sent half the army,
Wow.
the African army, to come and build a sukkah. And this was a time when it was the beginning of the rainy season. We were worried that it's going to be raining and so on. Instead, it was very windy, and every time they put up poles for the sukkah, the winds came and knocked them down. And they had to come the next day
To fix again.
Well, I think they spent 2 or 3 weeks just building that sukkah.
Wow,
Because
it's
every
nice.
time it was knocked down, every time, I don't know how they built it, but that's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And with the children, with the Israeli children, we spent afternoons, because in the morning they went to school. They went to the American school there. Afternoons, making decorations for the sukkah. They were making decorations. So when it came time, there was also something very important happening. It was the time the Americans sent the first man to the moon. This was the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And so we invited everybody in the American embassy to come. All the secretaries, everybody. And they had a pretty big embassy, not like ours. Ours was small. And we baked, my cook baked half moon cookies, half moon.
Mm-hmm.
It should symbolize the moon.
The moon, yeah.
It should look like the moon.
Okay.
And those half moon cookies were the delicious cookies that my grandmother used to make, I remember. Of course, they didn't come out the same way as my grandmother made them. But we did that as a gesture to show that we appreciated what they did.
Mm-hmm.
They paid from their taxes. That's how it got, how the man got to the moon. The American taxes of every secretary there. So we invited them. Anyway, we spent a few days in the sukkah. I'm afraid this is going to have a very tragic ending, because on the last day,
Mm-hmm.
I went home, and my husband came home with a strange man. And the strange man was a doctor who came with a needle this size. He plunged it into me, and I could hear my husband saying, "Our Javid is dead." And I didn't believe him.
Mm-hmm.
And I started screaming like a wounded animal. And that was the end of our Sukkot. Not a happy story. But I have other stories which are happier. That was Simchat Torah, which is supposed to be a happy holiday. And that's what happened to us. The greatest tragedy in my life.
That's all.